I arrived at the company's project seminar and walked into the meeting room 3 minutes ahead of schedule. Despite my punctuality, my husband's business partner and childhood friend, Isabel Croft, shot me a sidelong glance filled with displeasure. Late again, she commented, her tone sharp. And where's the coffee I asked you to buy? You didn't get it again. Are you just choosing to ignore what I say? I glanced at the watch on my wrist and chose to ignore her, proceeding towards my designated seat. Before I could sit, however, she kicked my chair away with the toe of her shoe. Her face was a mask of disdain. If you can't even manage a simple task like that, you might as well go home and be a housewife. Let Leo take care of you. You call yourself a career woman? If it weren't for Leo's sake, I would have fired you immediately just to spare us the sight of you. You're trash among women. As soon as her words fell, a wave of contempt washed over the room. Everyone present turned to look at me, their expressions ranging from amusement to outright scorn, with some rolling their eyes. Unfazed, I took out my phone, dialed Leo Vance's number, and placed it on the conference table, letting it ring on speaker. I then looked directly at Isabel. Why don't you ask your president, Mr. Vance, if he dares to fire me? The phone rang twice before Leo hung up. A few faint snickers echoed in the otherwise quiet room. Fuck, that's hilarious, someone muttered, asking if Leo would dare fire her. He wouldn't even bother acknowledging her. Another colleague chimed in, I've heard that women in unhappy marriages can be mentally unstable. I think she's one of them. She can't do anything right and just rides on being the CEO's wife, a dog barking because of its master's power. I can't stand women like her, a third added, acting all high and mighty as if she's better than everyone, but she's actually useless at everything. It's an embarrassment to all women. I ignored their taunts, redialing Leo's number as he continued to hang up. My brow furrowed slightly with annoyance. Isabel let out a theatrical sigh. All right, everyone knows what you're like, Anna. There's no need to try and save face here. Just hurry up and get the coffee so we can start the meeting. She opened the files on her desk, affecting an air of professional seriousness. With a cold expression, I continued to dial. Finally, the call connected and the room instantly fell silent. Every person in that room was waiting, eager to hear Leo's reaction. I heard him click his tongue on the other end, and I could easily picture the annoyed frown on his face. Are you out of your mind? He snapped. I was drinking with clients until midnight yesterday, and my head is killing me. Why in the world do you keep calling me? My own voice was calm and devoid of emotion when I replied. Leo, your partner wants to fire me. Did you know that? There was a 2-second pause before he spoke again, his tone turning cold and dismissive. I don't know, but she did the right thing. A glint flashed in my eyes as I glanced around at the other colleagues, who had already started to sneer. Anna Hayes, Leo continued, his voice dripping with condescension. You said you didn't want to be a housewife, so I arranged for you to join the best department. But what have you done? You consistently rank at the bottom in performance, just collecting a salary for doing nothing. Do you have any idea how many people are dissatisfied with you? The company is about to go public, and I don't keep useless people around. If you can't do the job, go home and make soup for me. Don't embarrass yourself here. Before I could say another word, he hung up. The collective gaze of the meeting room was fixed on me, everyone eagerly anticipating my look of humiliation. Isabel Croft swayed her hips as she walked towards me, a triumphant smirk on her face. I've told Leo for a long time that your skills aren't worthy of this company. With our current scale and industry standing, we only accept top-tier talent. Now that it's settled, you might as well go home to do the laundry and cook. Strive to be a full-time housewife. She smiled meaningfully. You wouldn't want to end up being incompetent at work and unable to keep your family, would you? That would be a joke. Isabel sneered, and her sentiment was echoed by the mocking laughter of the others. I allowed the corners of my lips to curl up slightly, feigning confusion as I asked her, What do you mean by that? Are you saying the company doesn't need me and Leo doesn't need me either? Isabel looked at me as if I had just uttered the most ridiculous thing she had ever heard. She burst into laughter, her body shaking with mirth. At work, you're always late and you leave early. You disrespect your superiors, spend your time putting on makeup with an air of defiance, and never complete your tasks. At home, you show no consideration for your husband. You refuse to continue the family line, and you don't even bother to ask when he comes home sick from social engagements. What do you have to offer? What value do you even bring? My expression turned cold, my lips curling into a humorless smile. My value, I replied in a level tone, is ensuring that people like you, including Leo, have food on your tables. If I leave, the Vance Group is finished. My statement was like a massive boulder plunging into a quiet lake, stirring up overwhelming waves of mockery. They had no idea what I truly meant to Leo and the entire Vance family. Years ago, Leo's grandfather, Arthur Vance, had come to my father with a blood-stained photograph. He explained that he and my grandfather had been brothers in the same trench during the war, and that my grandfather had saved his life. Using this life-saving favor as leverage, Arthur asked for my hand in marriage to his grandson Leo, while I was still studying abroad. I had never believed in love, assuming that an arranged marriage was an inevitable part of my future anyway. I figured I might as well repay this debt from my grandfather. Besides, at the time, Leo was fair-skinned and clean-cut, and his appearance matched my preferences. My father, however, was a seasoned veteran in the business world. He insisted on a prenuptial agreement with Arthur Vance, setting clear terms and conditions. The most crucial clause stated that if Leo ever wronged me, everything the Vance family had gained from me would vanish into thin air. In just 2 short years, with my support and resources, the Vance family rose from obscurity to become a leader in their industry. They accomplished a 10-year development plan in a single year. But now it seemed I had let the Vances get a bit too comfortable. Leo had grown some skills, and he clearly thought he could handle things on his own now. It was time I decided to settle the accounts properly. Across the room, Isabel was still bent over with laughter, smoothing the crow's feet at the corners of her eyes with her hand. "That's the funniest joke I've ever heard," she managed to say between gasps. I couldn't be bothered to argue with them any longer, so I grabbed my bag and turned to leave. Before I could even reach the conference room door, 2 male employees stood up and locked it, standing guard at the entrance like a pair of sentinels. "What do you think you're doing?" I asked coldly. Isabel finally stopped laughing and walked towards me, her high heels clicking on the floor. She crossed her arms and looked me up and down. "Anna, do you really think this company is your home, where you can come and go as you please? There's a process for termination." I lifted my eyelids slightly. "I don't need to follow your procedures." Isabel ran her sharp nails across my designer handbag, leaving 2 faint scratches. "Whether it's needed or not isn't for you to decide. Open your bag. We need to check if you're carrying any company property. If you are, it could be considered theft." Before I could argue, she added, "All company projects involve top-secret information. If you were to take anything or record it, the losses would be enormous." She gave me a sly smile. "Just following protocol, don't mind it." She waved her hand, and 2 other employees stood up and began walking towards me. As I watched Isabel become increasingly aggressive, I realized that I had been far too accommodating in my daily interactions. From childhood, my grandfather and father had taught me to be kind to others and to avoid making enemies. Having grown up abroad, I was the last person to assert authority based on social status. But I could see now that this approach only fueled their arrogance. "Isabel," I said, my voice dangerously low, "have you considered the consequences of doing this?" She snatched my bag from my shoulder and dumped its entire contents onto the floor in front of everyone. "I'm a company partner," she declared. "I'm enforcing company rules and Leo's orders. What consequences could I possibly face?" She casually kicked at my scattered belongings with the tip of her shoe, then raised her eyebrows in a challenging look. "Just because there's nothing in the bag doesn't mean there's nothing on you. Search her." As her words fell, the other employees in the room adopted expressions of eager spectators at a show, some even letting out wolf whistles. I furrowed my brows as the 2 men who had been guarding the door began to approach me. I immediately slapped away their outstretched hands. "Don't be so insolent," I scolded them, my voice like ice. "What right do you have to search me?" I suddenly unleashed my full, imposing aura, a side of me they had never seen, completely different from my usual gentle demeanor. They were visibly frightened, freezing in place, unsure of what to do. Isabel let out a contemptuous snort and pushed past them. "Anna, who are you trying to scare?" she sneered. She paused, staring at me. Are you still trying to intimidate us with your status as the CEO's wife? If so, you're mistaken. Mrs. CEO. You won't hold that title for much longer. I can tell you right now, Leo has disliked you for a long time. The woman worthy of him must be thousands of times more outstanding and perfect than you. In his eyes, you're not even comparable to the company's cleaning lady. Her smug expression confirmed my earlier suspicions. Leo had found someone else. It clearly wasn't Isabel. She was a capable partner, but she had no personal fortune to speak of. Given Leo's current status, the person he would choose over me would have to be someone who could bring him immense benefits. He was being naive, though. No one could bring him more benefit than me. Seeing me lower my gaze in silence, Isabel thought her words had struck a nerve. What's wrong? Scared? It's a bit late to be feeling fear now, isn't it? A housewife who gets divorced, loses her husband's support, and lacks the ability to survive independently must feel utterly hopeless about the future. Her chatter suddenly piqued my interest. From her expression, she seemed quite pleased with Leo's new partner. This made me curious. Who could this successful woman be? Isabel's sudden attack on me must have been an instruction from this person. A move to make me step aside voluntarily and divorce Leo. Watching Isabel's haughty demeanor, I spoke without expression. Isabel, Leo hasn't divorced me yet, and you're already popping the champagne at halftime. Be careful not to embarrass yourself. Ha! Anna, stop trying to save face. Just cooperate with the body search and leave the company quietly. Otherwise, when Leo arrives, you'll be the one who is truly humiliated, she shot back. Her arms crossed and her expression twisted. Body search? I scoffed. Who dares? What's there to fear? A man's voice cut through the tension from the doorway. Everyone in the room involuntarily stood up. Leo was here. The whispers started again. Let's see how she keeps up the act now. What's there to act? Everyone knows Leo never takes her seriously. Leo walked into the meeting room, dressed in a high-end custom suit, his hair slicked back and his hands in his pockets. Isabel exchanged a glance with him, then stepped back with a smile to let him pass. He walked right up to me, his voice devoid of any emotion. Anna, let's get a divorce. Name your terms. Leo, I said calmly, does your grandfather know you're divorcing me? Arthur knows best how important I am to the Vance family. If you want to play the game of killing the donkey after it's done its work, you'd better have the skills to pull it off. He let out a mocking laugh. Anna, don't use Grandpa to pressure me all the time. I've been filial enough, marrying you and supporting you for all these years for nothing. I can give you money, enough to last a lifetime as long as you agree to the divorce. I forced a smile, curling the corners of my lips. Money isn't important, Leo. You want to switch partners to climb higher, but how can you be so sure she'll be your ladder? He seemed to think I cared about the marriage, about his betrayal, and it put him in high spirits. What's left to say at this point, Anna? Even if you can't live without me, I must get this divorce. With her status and position, she can become an even greater asset for my expansion. The Vance family could ascend an entire social class. So, let's get divorced while I still have some patience left. I casually straightened the fabric of my skirt, showing nothing but indifference. Leo, if you divorce me, you will lose everything you have. That includes these people here. They'll even lose their jobs. Leo burst into laughter, and Isabel joined him, as if I had just told the funniest joke in the world. He casually took a seat, crossing his legs. All right, you're really something. If you agree to a divorce, I'll just wait to lose everything. Fine. Everyone else in the room also seemed to think I had gone mad from the shock, that I was starting to babble incoherently. The murmurs reached my ears. It's true that women must be independent. Look at her. Just the mention of divorce and her spirit has collapsed. I really can't stand her, and now she's threatening our livelihoods. I took a deep breath. This was the result of being too easygoing. My father always spoke of mutual respect, but that should depend on who you're dealing with. I took out my phone to make a call, but Isabel slapped it out of my hand. We haven't searched you yet. What are you doing with your phone? Trying to leak company secrets? My anger, long suppressed, began to rise. I had never felt so wronged in my entire life. At first, their ignorance was something I could overlook, but now they were pushing their luck, and a simple apology would no longer be enough. Isabel, I said, my gaze sweeping across the room, if you're acting under orders from Leo and that woman, I won't hold it against you personally. But think carefully. Do you have what it takes to bear the consequences of your actions? Leo scoffed. I really don't understand you. How can you still shamelessly threaten my people at a time like this? Isabel waved her hand dismissively. Stop dawdling. Search them. My expression turned to ice. Just as I was about to teach those approaching me a lesson, a woman's careless voice sounded from the doorway. Leo, why make such an ugly scene in front of everyone? It's so unbecoming. Amid the clicking of high heels, a woman who appeared a few years older than me walked into the conference room. She was wearing a stunning red bodycon dress and exuded an air of elegance. She walked directly over to Leo and, right in front of me, hooked her arm through his. She then raised an eyebrow at me. Miss Hayes, I heard you think I'm not qualified to be Leo's capital. Miss Thorne, you're here. Isabel was the first to react, stepping forward with a fawning expression. It's all because of this Anna, who stubbornly refuses to cooperate with the resignation process. Otherwise, we would have personally gone downstairs to welcome you. Her sycophantic attitude greatly pleased the woman. Miss Thorne leaned even closer to Leo. No need to be so formal. The Vance Group will essentially become part of my assets soon enough. My headquarters in Harbor City operate quite casually. However, your efficiency here still needs improvement. It's rather laughable that a simple employee termination has dragged on for this long. I raised an eyebrow slightly. From Harbor City with the surname Thorne. I knew of them. The Thorne family had been an aristocratic clan in Harbor City for generations. This woman, Victoria Thorne, was apparently the family's current public face, a truly accomplished woman in the eyes of the world. So this was the kind of woman men like Leo needed. Judging by everyone's reaction, she must have already made her presence known to everyone in the company. It was my own fault for being so detached from the office politics. I had no idea my husband was cheating right under my nose. Miss Thorne, I said softly, so you're planning to be the other woman. Don't put it so harshly. Victoria Thorne smiled faintly, showing not a shred of shame. How does that saying go? The one who isn't loved is the third wheel. Anna, I've set my sights on Leo, and from now on, he's my man. If you back off, that would be for the best. But if you still want to fight me for him, let's see what you've got. She declared her domineering sovereignty with just a few words, and everyone present was clearly intimidated. Beside her, Leo wore an even more arrogant expression, as if being chosen by Victoria was the proudest moment of his life. I looked at him and couldn't help but find it ridiculous. He actually planned to give up on me and choose some Thorne family woman. If my father found out, he would surely break his legs. Just a man, I said nonchalantly. I wouldn't stoop to fighting over him with you, although I don't know what you see in Leo. Without me, he'd probably lose his life. And you, I added, looking directly at Victoria. By provoking me with these people today, your Thorne family will suffer because of you. As soon as I finished speaking, everyone looked at me as if I were a fool. I knew that anything I said now would be futile. I bent down to pick up my phone, but Victoria crushed the screen with a stomp of her high heel. Just as she was about to step on my hand next, I grabbed her ankle and with a sharp twist, flung her through the air. She landed on the ground like a sack of potatoes, her hair disheveled, her dress askew, and her high heels scattered. Everyone was stunned. Don't you dare lay a hand on me! Isabel shrieked, rushing forward to defend her new master. I raised my hand and slapped her so hard she spun around in a full circle, clutching her face in disbelief. Leo immediately lunged at me, but he also received 2 hard slaps for his trouble. I dusted off my skirt and looked at the 3 people I had just struck. It barely vented a fraction of my anger. Victoria, fuming on the floor, cursed, "You bitch! I'll destroy you!" Her female bodyguards rushed forward, but before they could get close, a powerful roar stopped them in their tracks. "Stop right there!" Following the roar was the sound of a cane striking the ground with each heavy step. I didn't even need to look to know that Arthur Vance, Leo's grandfather, had arrived. He walked into the conference room with a stern expression, ordering his subordinates to activate the frosted glass panels, blocking the view of curious employees outside. Leo walked up to his grandfather, his cheeks red and swollen. "Grandpa, you came just in time. Anna is a shrew. She's utterly unworthy to be the daughter-in-law of our family. I must divorce her today." Arthur didn't even dare to glance at me. I pulled over a chair with great interest and sat down to watch. With a dark expression on his face, before Leo could even finish his complaint, Arthur raised his cane and brought it down hard on his grandson's arm. "Ah!" Leo cried out in shock, rubbing the spot in pain. Arthur immediately struck his leg. "You little brat, I'll beat you to death. Rather than waiting for you to get yourself killed, I might as well finish you off first." "Grandpa, what are you doing? I'm your own grandson." Arthur was trembling with rage, but his hand continued to strike. "If I hadn't arrived in time, the Vance family would have been ruined by your hands. Who gave you the nerve to even think about divorce? Are you looking for death? What a blessing it is for Anna to marry beneath her station to you, and you dare to divorce her? Are you trying to bankrupt the entire family?" Hearing Arthur publicly discipline his grandson over the divorce, people in the room began to speculate wildly. Seeing this, I had to make my stance clear. "Mr. Vance," I said, my voice cutting through the drama, "the issue now is no longer about whether Leo wants a divorce or not. It's me. I don't want to be in this marriage anymore." Arthur's expression instantly turned to one of horror. He walked step by step towards me, leaning on his cane. Then, in front of everyone, he bowed deeply to me. The room gasped in surprise, and I reflexively averted my gaze. Seeing my indifference, Arthur was about to kneel. I quickly reached out to support him, preventing him from doing so. I couldn't possibly accept a man his age kneeling before me. "Anna, no, Miss Hayes," he pleaded. "I know Leo has wronged you. It's my failure as a grandfather. I apologize to you on his behalf. I hope you won't hold it against him, for the sake of our past friendship. The Vance family will never agree to a divorce. Arthur, you know it's impossible. Why make things difficult for both of us?" From the moment Leo instructed Isabel to target me, the Vance family had been kicked out of my life. His past pleas based on his friendship with my grandfather were now useless. "Miss Hayes, I, Arthur Vance, am begging you," he said, his voice thick with desperation. He knew that once I made a decision, it wouldn't change. He had no choice but to beg me to spare his family. His public plea utterly stunned everyone present. "Enough!" Leo shouted with bloodshot eyes, catching the swinging cane. "I'm sick of hearing the same old lectures. What does Anna account for? The Thorne family's influence is no secret. Only with their support can our family secure an invitation to the capital's inner circle. Everything I've done has been for the Vance family." Victoria, having composed herself, added, "Arthur, since I've taken a liking to Leo, the Vance family is bound to rise even higher because of me. With an attitude like this, are you disregarding my Thorne family?" Her words only made me find the situation more laughable. Her helping the Vance family? She didn't even have a real share of her family's fortune. How could she possibly help them? "Enough!" Leo shouted again, his patience gone. He pulled a stack of documents from his briefcase and flung them onto the table in front of me. A divorce agreement. "Anna, sign it. Name your price. This marriage must end today." Arthur was so furious he began to have difficulty breathing, his blood pressure spiking and triggering a heart attack. Leo immediately ordered people to take his grandfather to the hospital. With Arthur's restraining presence gone, Leo completely let himself go. He stared at me coldly and handed me a pen. I took it without expression and flipped to the last page. He had already signed his name. I gave a self-deprecating smile and met his agitated gaze. "Leo, I hope you won't regret this. I will never regret it." I nodded slightly. Then, under everyone's watchful gaze, I signed my name. Leo immediately snatched the agreement away as if afraid I might tear it up. He embraced Victoria with satisfaction, who beamed and planted a loud kiss on his cheek. Then she looked at me with disgust. "Get her out of here already. She's an eyesore." They knew they couldn't physically force me out, so they focused on driving me away with words. I let out a cold laugh. my eyes brimming with a chill. Now, I said, it's time to settle my accounts. I picked up my phone with its cracked screen. Fortunately, it still turned on. I stared intently into Victoria's eyes and said, "Hey Siri, call Mr. Thorne." The moment I uttered her father's name, both Victoria's and Leo's eyes widened. "Are you kidding me?" she stammered. "You're going to call my dad?" Before she could finish, the call connected. "Young lady," a man's voice said, "how do you have time to call me?" Victoria's mocking smile froze on her face. "Dad?" she whispered, trembling. "Victoria, why are you calling from the young lady's phone?" her father asked, confused. Before she could answer, I cut her off. "Mr. Thorne, it seems Victoria is indeed your daughter. What a pity. Your family will be implicated by her." I briefly described her actions and then hung up. Immediately, Victoria's own phone rang. As she answered, her father's furious cursing could be heard clearly throughout the room. "Have you lost your mind? How dare you mess with the young lady?" "Let me tell you, Victoria, if the young lady is unhappy, our entire family will be reduced to begging. Get down on your knees and apologize right now. If she doesn't forgive you, the Thorne family is ruined because of you and you'll never come back. I disown you." After the call, Victoria trembled all over. She looked at me, her face full of terror. Could you be from the capital?" I raised my index finger to my lips in a shushing gesture. She instantly dropped to her knees, shuffling forward until she reached my feet. She began kowtowing incessantly. "Miss, I was wrong. I was wrong. It was my blindness. I deserve to die. I beg you, spare me this once. Let the Thorne family off." Her voice was choked with sobs, her forehead quickly becoming swollen and bloody, but she didn't dare stop. Seeing that wasn't working, she started slapping her own face, the forceful sounds echoing in the silent room. The onlookers were completely stunned, their mouths and noses covered in disbelief. Who was I that even the Thorns of Harbor City were this terrified? Her self-punishment was becoming unbearably loud. I snorted impatiently. "Victoria, for generations, the Thorne family has indeed been loyal, which is why they've maintained their foothold. But I never expected that by the time it reached your generation, you wouldn't even know the most basic principles of being a decent person. I've said it before. Your entire family will be dragged down by you." She could barely speak, but she continued to beg for mercy. I waved my hand impatiently. "Take your people and get back to Harbor City." Like she'd received a royal pardon, she kowtowed in thanks again before her bodyguards helped her up and they all scurried away. With Victoria dealt with, only Leo and his lackeys remained. I had Siri make another call to my people. In less than 10 minutes, the entire Vance Group building was surrounded. All employees were restrained, with no one allowed in or out. I walked up to Leo, who was now drenched in a cold sweat, his legs trembling with fear. "Leo, I warned you. I hope you won't regret it." Wife. His voice shook. "Don't call me that," I snorted coldly. "We're divorced." I reached out to pat his shoulder, and he shrank back in fear. "I don't know what your grandfather told you, but before we were married, he signed an agreement. If you divorce me, everything the Vance family gained from me will be reclaimed. You may not know much about my family, but if I reclaim what belongs to me, your Vance Group will go bankrupt immediately. We just signed the divorce agreement. So from that moment, the prenuptial agreement took effect. So Leo, you'd better not regret this." Leaving the stunned man behind, I turned to leave. Before I could step out of the room, a hand tightly grabbed my ankle. Looking back, Leo was imitating Victoria's behavior, kneeling at my feet. "Darling, I was wrong. It was all my fault. I was blinded by her. Please forgive me." I looked at his despicable behavior and felt a curse rising in my throat. Why do people like this always act without considering the consequences? And then, when they can't bear them, all they know how to do is kneel and apologize? With just one look, my people immediately pulled him away from me. "Leo, I told you a divorce would cost you everything and that they would lose their jobs too. None of you listened. What else can I do now? Besides, how is your wrongdoing any of my concern?" He started to cry, fearing the loss of everything he had, fearing the destruction of his family's legacy. The entire meeting room was soon filled with wails of despair. but none of it had anything to do with me anymore. 2 years of marriage, and I had finally regained my freedom. Leaving the Vance building, I returned to my family home in the capital without a moment's delay. My father was furious when he found out what had happened. The first to bear the brunt was the Thorne family. I heard my father caused them to lose tens of billions, and Mr. Thorne publicly disowned Victoria. The Vance family, however, was a different story. They had broken their promise first and then humiliated me. My father enforced the prenuptial agreement to the letter, taking over everything. Arthur Vance suffered a massive stroke upon seeing the legal documents and barely survived. Leo lost everything he owned and could never recover. I heard that in a desperate attempt to seek my father's forgiveness, he knelt outside our old family home for a month until his legs were permanently damaged, all in vain. Rumor has it that someone saw the leg-disabled Leo among a group of homeless people. Others claim to have seen Victoria and Isabel getting harassed while promoting drinks in bars. But whoever it was, and whatever happened to them, it's none of my business anymore. Because I am currently fishing in the Caribbean, finally living my own life.